Камеруич, disclaimer, friends, something just happened. Military experts call it a turning point in the history of modern warfare. Russia has struck a blow that will require all military strategy textbooks to be rewritten. Hypersonic. The Kinjal missile in its latest modification has just demonstrated capabilities that the West hasn't even heard of. Dreamed of. Speed 10 times faster than sound. Absolute invulnerability to any systems. Air defense and taxi of up to several meters from a distance of 2,000 km NATO. Calls an emergency meeting. The Pentagon issued allows anti-European capitals. Realizes that their entire missile defense castridence of dollars has become an expensive usselistoi. What does this mean for the balance of power? And WHO does this weapon change everything? Let's find out in this video. Well, friends, you're on the channel from the historian's office, and now it's going to be interesting. Thanks in advance. Thanks for your like and subscription. Get comfortable. Let's get started. Morning, 14th. February 2026 will be remembered by military analysts for a long time. IT was on this day. The Russian Air Force carried out a series of strikes that shot everyone. They were the real capabilities of hypersonic weapons. Kinjal missiles were launched from NIK-31K fighters located at a distance of almost 1,500 km from the targets. The flight time to the targets was less than 3 minutes. During these 3 minutes, the defense system in the world is capable of reacting, detecting, triggering, and attempting intercept a target moving at a speed of over 12,000 km/h and constantly. Maneuvering. It's not just fast. It's so fast that the time from detection to the duration of the streak is measured in seconds, which is not enough even to raise an alarm. Western military experts who analyzed the strikes came to a shocking conclusion against this. There is no protection from weapons. None at all. The history of the dagger began several years ago, when Russian designers set themselves an ambitious task to create an air-launched missile system capable of hitting any targets at vast distances with guaranteed overcoming any air defense. The task seemed fantastic. It was necessary to combine enormous speed, high precision, the air ability to maneuver, and at the same time maintain sufficient range. Traditional air-parachute missile design did not work here. Fundamentally new solutions in aerodynamics, material science, guidance, and control systems. And Russian engineers found these solutions, and they found them earlier than anyone in the West even. I started thinking seriously about this problem. The result was a weapon that was 20 years ahead of its time. Basic. The dagger version had already been used before and showed impressive results. But what has appeared now is a completely different level. The modernized KRM-PX received an improved propulsion system that increased the firing range to 2,000 km, a nuclear warhead, an improved system, guidance system that ensures accuracy of hit comparable to precision, cruise missiles, but at a speed 10 times greater than their capabilities. And the main thing is the improved sound interception system, which makes the missile absolutely invulnerable to modern air defense systems. Western analysts, having received the first data about characteristics of the new modification, at first they simply did not believe it, because what they saw contradicted everything. Existing ideas about what is possible. The technical side of this is astonishing. Imagine Nation. The rocket accelerates to speeds exceeding Mach 10. This, about 3.5 km/cubic. Imagine an object that in one. The distance from one end of a large city to the other flies by in a second. The missile does not fly along a ballistic trajectory like conventional ballistic missiles. It is capable of actively maneuver throughout the fly. It can change altitude, direction, and speed. This makes it. The trajectory is unpredictable. Even if the air defense system somehow miraculously detects a missile, it is impossible to calculate the interception point, because in a split second the missile will already be completely in another place, and by the time the anti-missile reaches the calculated interception point, the dagger will be hundreds of meters from it. The dagger's guidance system is a combination of several Independent systems. Inertial navigation ensures movement towards a common target area. Satellite navigation provides precise coordinates. Active. The radar humming detects and tracks the targeted. The final section of the trajectory. Plus an optical electronic system, which operates in both infrared and visible ranges. All of this is duplicated and operates in parallel. If one system jammed with interference, the rest will continue to operate. Moreover, the missile is capable receive target designations in fly via a secure communication channel. That is, even if the target is moving, the missile can be retargeted literally seconds before impact. Such flexibility in control makes the dagger a universal weapon against any targets, from stationary objects to moving ships. The missiles warhead also deserves a separate discussion. The warhead's mass. The charge weighs about 500 kilograms. It could be a conventional explosive warhead, penetrating warhead for destruction of buried and protected objects, or cluster warhead for area target destruction. There is information about the existence of a special warhead, but this data has not been officially confirmed. The kinetic energy of a rocket moving at such a speed is enormous in itself. Even without the warhead exploding, a dagger streak is capable of destroying almost any target. It's like a small meteorite falling. The combination of enormous speed and significant mass creates a destructive force comparable to a tactical nuclear charge, but without radioactive contamination. The dagger's carrier is a specially modified interceptor fighter, MiG-31K. This aircraft was not chosen by chance. The MiG-31 was originally designed for fly at high altitudes with high speed. It is capable of climbing to a height of more than 20 km and accelerate to speeds of over 3,000 km/h. These are the parameters required to launch a hypersonic missile. The aircraft rises the rocket to a great height, accelerates to maximum speed and launches. The missile gains initial speed and altitude, which allows it to survive and increase its range. In addition, launching from a high altitude makes it difficult for systems to detect the moment of launch. Early warning of the enemy. Modification of the MiG-31K includes a reinforced under fuselage mount for carrying a heavy missile, updated avionics and system. Weapons control. Additional fuel tanks to increase the radius. Actions. The aircraft can carry one Kinjal missile, which is due to its size and weight. But even one such missile is guaranteed destruction. Any selected target. The MiG-31K crew undergoes special training. Piloting at supersonic speeds and high altitudes requires special skills and maximum concentration. Plus, you need to precisely reach the specified launch point and launch at exactly the right time. A certain moment. The slightest mistake can reduce the effectiveness of the streak. The dagger's tactics differ from traditional air approaches. The carrier aircraft does not enter the enemy air defense zone. It takes off from an airfield located hundreds of kilometers away. Front lines. Gains altitude and speed, reaches the launch area and launches a missile, after which it immediately turns around and goes to base. The entire flight takes about an hour, but during this time the plane manages to hit the target at a distance of up to 1.5 to 2 kilometers from the takeoff point. The crew does not is passed to danger. It operates in a zone of complete safety, out of reach of enemy assets. Defeat. This radically changes the relationship between risk and effectiveness. Previously, to hit a yield-winning target, it was necessary to risk expensive aircraft and the lives of their crews. Now, you can strike with virtually no risk. When the first strikes with modernized daggers were inflicted, the reaction was predictable. Objects considered reliably protected were hit with precision, up to several meters. Their defense systems didn't even have time to react. Several interceptor missiles, but they went in a completely different direction because their guidance system simply could not track such a fast-moving and maneuvering target. For a defense operators, it was a shock. They saw something on the radar screens moving with unimaginable speed, but they couldn't do anything about it. One of the operators later described it. It's like watching a movie in fast forward. You see that something is happening, but it's physically impossible to react. Western military experts. An emergency analysis of the incident was launched. All available data was reviewed. Satellite reconnaissance, radio interception of intelligence sources, and gradually, a picture began to emerge that plunged the term into despondency. Russia is not just created an effective weapon, it created a weapon against which the West has not countermeasures at all. All those trillions of dollars that were spent on creating missile defense systems were wasted. Patriot, Go, all those systems, which were considered the pinnacle of military thought, turned out to be our series against hypersonic weapons. They are simply not designed to intercept targets moving at such speed and capable of active maneuvering. An emergency meeting was convened at the Pentagon with the participation of the Secretary of Defense, the Chiefs of Staff of all branches of the armed forces, and representatives of the intelligence community. The main question on the agenda, how to protect from Kim Jong, and there was no answer. One of the generals suggested increasing the number of defense systems to increase the density of fire, but mathematics is inexorable. Even if deploy stop Patriot batteries, the probability of intercepting a hypersonic maneuvering target remains virtually zero. NATO suggests creating a layer defense using all available means, but has also not solved the problem. The dagger will pass through any echelons, simply because IT is too fast. The third one spoke about the need for preemptive strikes against dagger carriers at airfields. But there is a problem here too. Russian, the airfields are located deep in the rear, well protected, and the planes can take off from alternative sides. Scattered across a vast territory. Trump, having learned that Russia had effectively acquired an invulnerable weapon, became furious. According to sources present at the meeting, the ex-president accused military leadership of incompetence and wastefulness. He recalled that even during Uch's first presidential term, he warned about the need to develop hypersonic technologies, but then they didn't listen, deciding that IT was too expensive and technically complicated. As a result, Russia has overtaken the United States beyond 10-15 years, and now America has found itself in the role. Tsachuk, Trump demanded the immediate launch of a program to create an American hypersonic weapons with unlimited funding. But experts explain that even with unlimited funding, IT will take at least 5 years with the budget to create something comparable to with a dagger, and catching up with Russia's technological lead could take 10-15 years. Panic has set in within NATO. The Alliance Secretary General has called an emergency meeting. North Atlantic Council. Representatives of member countries arrived in Brussels with gloomy faces. The agenda was one, what to do with the Russian hypersonic weapons. European countries were especially nervous because the dagger, with its range of 2,000 km, is capable of hitting targets at almost throughout Europe, launching from Russian territory. That is, an important air budget in any European capital was under fire and protection. There is no threat from this. Representatives of Eastern European countries demanded deployment of additional defense systems on their territory, but Western Europeans, they rightly pointed out the utility of this measure. WHO spent billions on systems that don't work anyway. Against a targeted threat, UNRWA has also begun in the European again. Foreign ministers held an emergency meeting in Brussels to discuss the situation. Officially, the meeting was devoted to foreign policy coordination. Unofficially, the question was discussed. Maybe it's time to reconsider our position towards Russia. If Moscow has a weapon that no one can handle, maybe it's worth looking for ways to compromise, rather than making things worse. Confrontation. Representatives of Germany and France were particularly active in promoting this position. They pointed out that Europe had become a hostage to someone else's conflict and was suffering colossal economic losses. Now military security is also in question. Eastern Europeans, naturally, they were against any compromises, but their voices no longer sounded as loud as before. Zelensky learned of the Russian dagger strikes from an urgent message from its military. The reaction was close to hysteria. He immediately contacted American and European partners, demanding the provision of protective equipment, hypersonic missiles, but heard a disappointing response. There are no such weapons. Then the Ukrainian president demanded retaliatory strikes against Russian airfields from which the dagger carriers take out, but here too he was refused, because this requires long-range weapons, which Ukraine does not have, and Western countries are not ready for. Fearing escalation, Zelensky found himself in a trap. On the one hand, on the other hand, a threat hung over his head from which it was impossible to defend himself. On the other hand, he has no means to retaliate, and no one is going to provide it him. Military analysts began to calculate the consequences of Russia's emergence of virtually unlimited opportunities for targeted strikes on any targets at huge distances. The conclusions were disappointing for West: any concentration of troops, any accumulation of equipment, any important air object, KRM post, warehouse, bridge, power plant, can now be destroyed in minutes without defense capabilities. This makes classical military conduct impossible. Actions: you can't accumulate reserves for a counteroffensive. They will be destroyed before they have time to do anything. It is impossible to organize a stable defense of any. The defense not there will be suppressed. It is impossible to ensure the security of the rear. Air objects: they are all within the air-affected area. The economic consequences of the airplanes. The dagger's performance in the new modification is all significant. Firstly, it has increased sharply. The cost of ensuring military and strategic facilities in areas within the red zone. Rational airplanes. Insurance companies rightly pointed out that the risks have increased repeatedly and either increase rates or refuse to insure all targets. Secondly, an outflow of investment has begun from regions considered potentially vulnerable. Businesses don't want to invest in areas where a missile could strike at any moment. Thirdly, prices have skyrocketed for defense products. Everyone wants to buy at least something that can protect against the new threats. But since such products do not exist, it turns out to be speculative. Bubble. Russia's technological superiority in the field of hypersonic weapons. This is not an accident or a failure. It is a result of a decade of systematic work. The foundations of hypersonic research were laid back in Soviet times. Special institutes were created, unique test rigs were built, and personnel were trained. The sword didn't stop in the 90s, although it slowed down due to lack of funding. But the work remained. Specialists remained in the profession. And when in the 2000s they began allocate significant funds for defense, and all these efforts have yielded results. Russia. I ended up here precisely because I didn't stop researching, even when it was. It's very difficult. After the end of the Cold War, the West decided that competition. It's sovereign, you can relax. Hypersonic technologies were pursued there outwardly, without enthusiasm, without sufficient funding. And here is the result. It is interesting that the concept itself, the dagger's design, is quite simple. Essentially, it's an adaptation of a ground-based ballistic missile, medium-range for launch from an aircraft carrier. But the devil, as we know in detail, so that the missile could, to be launched from an airplane, it was necessary to solve a lot of technical problems to ensure the strength of the structure during high dynamic loads, to create a control system capable of operating in under conditions of enormous speeds and outlets, to develop materials that can withstand heating up to several thousand degrees when moving in dense layers of the atmosphere. Each of these tasks in itself is a serious technological challenge, but it was necessary to solve them all at once and integrated them into a single system. Russian engineers coped with this and coped brilliantly. Launch. The dagger looks impressive. The Mi-31 KTX out from the airfield and quickly gains altitude. At an altitude of about 20 km, the plane enters ground through fly and accelerates to maximum speed. The pilot receives guidance from the guidance systems. Signal to reach the launch point. A final check of all systems is performed, and at the right moment, separation of the rocket from the carrier, the multiton colossus of the dagger for several moments, IT falls freely downwards, then the thrusting engine is activated, and the rocket rushes towards the target, leaving behind a bright trace in the stratosphere. Just a few minutes later, somewhere over 1,000 km, a powerful explosion occurs, signifying the defeat of another target. Accuracy. The impact of a dagger streak ermee the even specialists. The circular probable deviation is only a few meters. This means that the missile hits almost exactly the designated point. 4. By comparison, conventional ballistic missiles have an accuracy of tens, if not hundreds, meters. Such accuracy is achieved through the integrated use of various guidance and trajectory correction systems in flight. The missile constantly checks its position with the given coordinates and makes measured distance. At the final stage, the active radiojamming, which ensures precise target hits. There is information that the latest modifications can be guided by an optical image of the target, which is also increases accuracy more. Combat use of the dagger has shown its versatility. They can hit stationary targets, bunkers, caravan posts, points, warehouses, breaches, power plants. Moving targets can be attacked. Ships, convoys, trains. Area targets can be attacked, including airfields and ports. Industrial zones. In effect, IT is a universal weapon capable of solving any wide destruction tasks and do it with minimal risk to our own forces. There is no need to send dozens of planes, risking term and their crews. One MiG-31K with one missile is enough to guarantee destruction of the selected target. The cost of one Kinjal missile is estimated. Experts is about $10 to $15 million. This may seem a lot, but let's compare it with alternatives. A massive airstrike using conventional weapons will require dozens of aircraft, hundreds of bombs and missiles. The total cost of such an operation could reach hundreds of millions of dollars. However, there is no guarantee that the target will be hit. Risk of losing aircraft and crews. With the dagger, everything is simpler. 130, 1 missile, guaranteed kill, 0 losses. In terms of cost effectiveness, this is a very profitable solution. Dagger production is being deployed at several defense enterprises. Exact volume the releases are, of course, classified, but according to Indirect's data, we are talking about dozens. Missiles per month. This was not only to replenish expanded ammunition, but also to expand the arsenal. IT is planned that within the next year all aviation regiments equipped with MiG-31 will be able to use a dagger. This will create a group of several dozens of carrier aircraft capable of simultaneously striking hundreds targets across Europe. This concentration of striking power changes the strategic balance in the region. Western countries are frantically searching for ways to counteract IT. The most exotic options from the creation of space interception systems to the use of laser weapons. But all these projects are either at the theoretical development stage or do not demonstrate sufficient effectiveness. Space-based interception systems require the deployment of weapons in space, which violates international treaties and may lead to a space arms race. Laser weapons do not yet have with sufficient power to hit targets moving at hypersonic speeds at long ranges. There remains impetus to create our own hypersonic missiles and thus balance the balance. But, as already, IT was said that this would take years. It is interesting to observe the reaction of the Western media. For the first few days after the dagger's new capabilities were demonstrated, information was kept virtually hushed up. Major publicitants either did not write about IT at all or gave brief notices. Somewhere on the last pages. But when IT became aware that IT would not be possible to remain silent, the information campaign began. A campaign to downplay the significance of the incident. Articles appeared in which experts they claimed that the dagger was just a modernization of an old Soviet missile, that its capabilities are greatly exaggerated by Russian propaganda, that the vast of counteracting IT, but they are not, as shown for reasons of secrecy. The standard set of counting and what teaches for reassure the public, but facts are aberrant things. And the effect is that Russia has created a weapon that gives it a decisive advantage on the battlefield. This is not propaganda. This is a reality that even the most skeptical experts acknowledge. A retired general, former commander of the Air Force of one of the major European countries, in an interview with a private channel, he admitted, if the Russians really have what they should, via defense restored all our multi-billion-dollar investments in their defense systems proved useless. This isn't a defeat, it's a disaster. For this frank word, the general received a reprimand from his government, but in essence, it didn't change things. The truth remains the truth, no matter how you try to tell it. Shut up. Putin briefly mentioned nuance in his recent speech. Achievements of the Russian military-industrial empires. Without going into details, he noted that Russia continues to improve its armed forces and has the means capable of protecting national interests from any threats to this vast. The Russian leaders characteristic reserve the man of presenting information. No threats, no ultimatums, no tilings, just a statement of effect. We have IT works, and it's necessary. Take this into account in your calculations. This approach is much more effective than loud statements, because there is real power behind IT, not just empty words. It's interesting to follow historical parallel. At the height of the Cold War, the USSR created the world's first intercontinental ballistic missile. This forced the United States to reconsider its entire military strategy and accelerate their own missile programs. Now history repeats itself. Russia is once again emerging as a technological leader in a critical and important area of armaments, and once again the West is vowed to catch up. The difference is that today Russia has a much stronger position. The economy is stable, industry is functioning, and technological. The base is preserved and developing, so the gap will not only not narrow, but may and increase. The use of daggers has a serious psychological effect, impact on the enemy. When you know that a missile can evaluate your position at any moment, which there is no protection, it is demoralizing. People become nervous, commit mistakes, they lose morale, and also experience stress. Planning. Operations become difficult because any accumulation of forces can be immediately destroyed. IT is necessary. Disperse, camouflage, and constantly change positions. All this reduces the effectiveness of actions and exhausts the trapeze. On the other hand, the Russian military feels confident. They have a tool that allows you to solve the Moscow Empire's problems. This raises morale and increases combat readiness. The tactical use of daggers is constantly being improved. Various tricky patterns. Single strikes on point targets, group strikes on area targets, herb objects, sequential to suppress echelon defense, techniques for coordination with other branches of the armed forces. For example, air defense positions are suppressed by daggers, after which conventional aviation receives the ability to act freely. Or, on the contrary, aviation possesses the system. Enemy defense identifies UNADs and dagger destroyed ARM. Interaction dramatically increases the effectiveness of the entire group. Western military forces have begun to explore the possibility using preemptive strikes against dagger carriers before they take off. Theoretically, if the MiG-31K is destroyed on Earth, the threat is eliminated, but this is extremely difficult to implement in practice. Firstly, the aircraft are based at airfields deep in the Russian rear. 1,000 came from the front line. To reach the ARM, we need weapons, long range, which the enemy either does not have or their use immense. A direct attack on Russian territory with all the ensuing consequences. Secondly, Russian air defense reliably covers these airfields. Any attempt, streaky will be detected and stopped. Thirdly, the carrier aircraft can quickly redeploy to alternative airfields, disperse, and use decoys. So the idea, preemptive strikes remain more theoretical than practically feasible. The diplomatic consequences of Russia's emergence of hypersonic superiority are also significant. Moscow's position in international negotiations has strengthened. Now any discussions are conducted with understanding of the fact that Russia has the means to do so in a matter of minutes. Change the situation on the battlefield. This forces opponents to be more flexible and willing to compromise. Western diplomats can no longer press from a position of strength because the balance of power has changed at their disadvantage. They have to look for mutually acceptable solutions, taking into account the interests of all parties. This is a healthier basis for dialogue than impetus to dictate their will. The до сих пор potential is enormous, but Russia is not. Is rushing to sell her bear out. For now, priority is given to equipping its own armed forces. Only after all Russia needs some ability to be able to think about их port. Moreover, this weapon is so advanced and secret that its sale requires careful weighing of all the pros and cons. You need to be sure that the technology will not fall into the hands of unfriendly countries, that the buyer will use the weapons responsibly, that this will not upset the balance of power in the region. So even if их port deliveries will begin, we will be talking about a strictly limited quantity and for strictly verified partners. The gas production chain is entirely localized in Russia, from design development to mass production. All production is done domestically. This is critically important because it eliminates dependence on imported materials. Components. The sanctions that the West lost way around don't affect production. All the necessary materials, Russian components and technologies. Moreover, the development of the dagger yielded a powerful impetus for the development of related industries, material science, electronics, engine building. They all received new challenges and successfully completed them. This created a technological reserve that will be set in other projects. Training of specialists to work with the dagger is carried out in specialized centers. Pilots undergo training on simulators that simulate all the intricacies of flying such a rocket. Technical personnel are learning the ins and outs of maintenance and launch preparation. A comprehensive training system has been created, which ensures high quality of operation of the components. Each specialist understands their role and performs IT flawlessly because the cost of error is too high. We are talking about weapons worth millions of dollars that most function without fail. The Kinjai's logistics are all carefully thought out. The missiles are stored in special, secure vaults. Transportation is carried out by special machines that ensure safety and security. Preparation for suspension on. The aircraft operates under strictly regulated conditions with all safety precautions taken. All this ensures reliability and readiness for use at any time. There is no risk that at a critical moment the rocket will turn out to be faulty or not ready for launch. Information. The dagger safety is at the highest level. All the information about each characteristics, application tactics. The results of the strikes are strictly classified. Access to the information is limited to a limited circle of people. Any leaks are immediately investigated and stopped. This allows us to maintain a technological advantage and prevent the enemy from developing countermeasures. Western intelligence agencies are working at full capacity, trying to obtain at least some information, but Russian counterintelligence has so far successfully resisted this impetus. Future development of hypersonic weapons is seen in several directions, increasing range, improving XC, expanding the range of combat parts, creating a version for other media. The possibility is being considered. Launching daggers from ground installations, from ships, from submarines. This will make a system even more flexible and versatile. Work is also under to create the next generations of hypersonic weapons with even more impressive characteristics, but the details of these projects are, naturally, kept in the strictest confidence. The airplanes. The dagger became a turning point not only in the military sphere, but also in public consciousness. Russia proved that it is capable of creating technology that is ahead of its time, that sanctions and isolation did not break IT, but made IT. IT is stronger, that Russian engineers and scientists are not inferior, and in many ways surpass their Western counterparts. This increases national pride and strengthens self-confidence, creates a positive mood in a society. People see that the country is developing. achieve success can withstand any challenges, and this is more important than any propaganda campaigns. The dagger is not just a weapon, it is a symbol of a new Russia. Russia that is not afraid to set ambitious goals and achieve them, which does not look back to the West, but goes its own way, which relies on its own strength and its own technology, and which is ready to defend its interests with the most modern means. This is a message to the whole world. Russia is back, and you have to deal with it. Whether the West wants it or not, the effect remains a effect. The Dnieper war has ended. A new era has begun, in which Russia plays one from the leading roles, and the dagger is a clear confirmation of this. Well, that's where our episode ends. What do you think about this? Sincerely, I look forward to your opinion in the comments below the video. To new subscribers, I express my gratitude, special respect, and doubly so for the old ones.